Monster Island, a zombie novel by David Wellington. Chapter 1. Osmond leaned over the rail and spat into the gray sea before turning again to shout orders at his first mate, Yusuf. The GPS had died 2 weeks out to sea, and in the fog we would be lucky not to crash into the side of Manhattan at full speed. With no harbor lights to follow and nothing at all on the radio, he could only rely on dead reckoning and intuition. He shot me an anxious look. "Naga amos, Dekab," he said. "Shut up." Though I hadn't said a word. He ran from one side of the deck to the other, pushing girls out of the way. I could barely see him through the mist. When he reached the starboard... He ran from one side of the deck to the other, pushing girls out of his way. I could barely see him through the mist. When he reached the starboard rail, ropey coils of vapor wrapping around his feet, splattering the wood and glass with the foredeck of tiny beads of dew. The girls chattered and shrieked like they always did, but in the claustrophobic fog they sounded like carrion birds squabbling over some prize giblets. Yusuf shouted something from the wheelhouse, something Osmond clearly didn't want to hear. "Huya dawas," the captain screamed back. Then in English, "Quarter steam! Bring her down to quarter steam!" He must have sensed something in the murk. For whatever reason, I turned then to look ahead at the port. The only thing over that way was a trio of the girls. In their uniforms, they looked like a girl band gone horribly wrong. Gray headscarves, navy school blazers, plaid skirts, combat boots, AK-47s slung over their shoulders. 16 years old and armed to the teeth. The glorious girls' army of the Free Women's Republic of Somaliland. One of the girls raised her arm, pointed at something. She looked back at me as if for validation, but I couldn't see anything out there. Then I did, and I nodded agreeably. A hand raising from high above the sea, a bloated, enormous green hand holding a giant torch, the gold at the top dull in the fog. "This is New York, yes, Dekab? This is the famous Statue of Liberty?" Ayan didn't look at me in the eye. But she wasn't looking at the statue either. She had the most English of all the girls, and she'd acted as my interpreter for the voyage, but we weren't exactly what you'd call close. Ayan wasn't close with anybody unless you counted her weapon. She was supposed to be a crack shot with that AK, and a ruthless killer. She still couldn't help but remind me of my daughter Sarah and the maniacs I'd left her back in Mangud. She still couldn't help but remind me of my daughter Sarah and the maniacs I'd left her with back in Mogadishu. At least Sarah would only have to worry about human dangers. I had personal guarantee from Mama Hilma, the warlord in charge of FWRS. The warlord in charge of the FWRSs. That she would be protected from the supernatural. Ayan ignored my stare. They showed us the picture of the statue in the madrasa. They made us spit on the picture. I ignored her as best I could and watched as the statue materialized out of the fog. Lady Liberty looked all right, about the way I'd left her 5 years before. The last time I'd come to New York, long before the epidemic began. I guess I'd been expecting to see something, some sign of damage or decay. But she had already gone green with verdigris long before I was born. In the distance, through the mist, I could see through the mist, I could make out the pendant, the star-shaped base of the statue. It seemed impossibly real, hallucinatory, perfect. hallucinatorily perfect and unblemished. In Africa, I'd seen so much horror, I think I'd forgotten what the West could be like and if its sheen of normality, of health. Fear! One of the girls railed. Fear! One of the girls at the rail shouted. Ayan and I pushed forward and started to the mist. Ayan and I pushed forward into the mist. We could make out most of Liberty Island now and the shadows of Ellis Island beyond. The girls were pointing at something adjacent. The girls are pointing with agitation at the walkway. The girls are pointing it with agitation at the walkway that ringed Liberty, at the people there. The girls are pointing with agitation at the walkway that ringed Liberty, at the walkway. The girls were pointing with agitation at the walkway that ringed Liberty, at the people there. American clothes, American hair exposed to the elements. Tourists, perhaps? Perhaps not. Osmond, I shouted. Osmond, we're getting too close. But the captain yelled for me to shut up again. On the island I saw hundreds of them, hundreds of people. They waved at us, their arms moving stiffly like something from a silent movie. They pushed forward the railing. They pushed forward the railing to get closer to us. As the trawler rolled closer, I could see them crawling over one another to get As the trawler rolled closer, I could see them crawling over one another in the desperation to touch us, to swarm on board. I thought maybe, just maybe, they were all right. Maybe they'd run to Liberty Island for refuge and been safe there, and were just waiting for us, waiting for rescue. But then I smelled them. I knew they weren't all right at all. I knew they weren't all right at all. Give me your tired, your poor, your wrecked. Give me your tired, your poor, your wretched refuse, my brain repeated over and over. A mantra. My brain wouldn't stop. Give me your huddled masses yearning to breathe. Osmond, turn away! One of them toppled over the side of the railing, maybe pushed by the straining crowd behind. A woman in bright red windbreaker, her hair a matted lump on one side of her head. She tried desperately to dog paddle toward the trawler, but she was hindered by the fact that she kept reaching up, one bluish hand to try to grab at us. She wanted so badly, wanted to reach us, to touch us. Give me your tired. You're so very, very tired. I couldn't take this. I didn't know what I had thought I could accomplish by coming here. I couldn't look at another dead person crawling at my face. Another dead person clawing for my face. One of the girls opened with her rifle. A controlled burst, 3 shots, chut, 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 chopping at the gray water. Chut, chut, chut. The bullets tore through the red windbreaker, tore open the woman's neck. Chut, chut, chut. And her head popped open like an overripe melon and she sank, slipping beneath the water, without so much as a splash or a bubble. And still, pressed up against the railing on Liberty Island, 100 more reached for us. Reached with pleading skeletal hands to clutch at us, to take what was theirs. Your huddled masses, give me your dead, I thought. The ship heeled hard for the one side of the Osmonds finally. The ship heeled hard over to one side of Osmond's finally. The ship heeled hard over to one side as Osmond finally brought her around. The ship heeled hard to one side as Osmond finally brought her around, nosed around the edge of Liberty Island and kept us from running up the rocks. Give me your wretched dead, yearning to devour your shambling masses. Give me. That was what they were thinking, wasn't it? The living dead, over there, on the island. If there was any spark left in their brains, any thought possible to decay neurons, if there was any spark left in their brains, any thought possible to decayed neurons, it was this. Give me your life, your warmth, your flesh, give me.